Well, thanks everybody, and welcome to another edition of our Calfee NOW series. Today is a special one. We have the Mayor-Elect for the City of Cincinnati, Aftab Pureval. He's actually the 70th mayor of the City of Cincinnati. So Aftab, how you doing, sir?
I'm great. Thanks so much for putting this on. I really appreciate it. It's good to be with so many friends here. The week of Thanksgiving. Are you guys ready to throw down on some turkey and some stuffing?
And this is a special one, too, because we have the former mayor of Cincinnati, Charlie Luken, on, as well as our colleague Patrick Hayes from Calfee. So, Mayor-Elect, we'll get right into it. So, tell us a little bit about your background and kind of how you ended up being the 70th mayor of Cincinnati.
Yeah, you know, it's been kind of a whirlwind for me. So I was born and raised in the Dayton area, Beaver Creek. Went to Ohio State for undergrad and moved to Cincinnati for the first time in 2005 for law school. I went to the UC College of Law, where Pat and I became fast friends. Pat was the student body president of UC Law, so he spoke at our commencement and gave really one of the top 5 speeches of my life. So
I'd like to point out, ran unopposed that 3L year too. Ran unopposed that 3L year. Yeah.
But we became fast friends. I moved out to DC and I was an antitrust litigator with the law firm of White and Case. I did that for 4 years, and I actually started the day Lehman Brothers went under. That was the beginning of my career. Was the precipice of the housing collapse, and so those 4 years were intense and stressful to say the least, and I got homesick. I wanted to come back to Cincinnati, so I became a special assistant U.S. attorney. I was a federal prosecutor in the Southern District here in Cincinnati for a year, and then I transitioned to P&G. I was a beauty attorney. I was the global brand attorney for Olay and CoverGirl for several years. Loved the company, loved my time there, but had this calling for public service. Always had a passion and an interest for it, but never thought that a brown dude named Aftab could find an electorate to elect me. And it was really President Obama who convinced me that no matter what your name or ethnicity is, that if you're passionate and work hard, you can run and you can serve. And so ran for the clerk of courts in 2016. People didn't think I had a chance. My opponent was very well known and very well established, but we shocked a lot of people by winning, and that kind of put me on the path to now being the 70th mayor of Cincinnati. And it's been, it's just been a wonderful experience so far. Just incredibly humbled and honored and grateful for the opportunity to lead. I will say I have a whole lot more new friends calling me every day. I've got, people think I'm much funnier than they used to. Everyone's laughing at my jokes these days, so that's nice. Although it's having.
Tell me who. Come on, who's really like? Come on.
Not anyone on this call, but it's having the opposite effect on my wife. She thinks I'm increasingly ridiculous, so she keeps me humble. But it's been a fun ride these last few weeks.
Fantastic. Mayor, I'll hand it over to you. Mayor Luken.
Hey, good afternoon. I was just wondering, watching you since the election, before the election, I understood your plans for the city a little bit. If you kind of highlight a little bit about what's top of your agenda, and I'm interested in, have any of your conversations since the election altered kind of the priorities or the emphasis of what you're thinking you want to do when you get sworn in January 1?
Yeah, nothing's altered my priorities or my vision or certainly my values. I will say there are different issues that that are more timely maybe than others. So for example, during the campaign, we kept hearing about this infrastructure bill. Will it pass? Will it not pass? Well, it's finally passed. And so coordinating with the county on MSD, on the banks, on the convention center, on a whole host of things, it was always a priority. But now it's even more time sensitive. It's even more urgent. I just met with Denise today. I plan on meeting with the entire county commission. Met with Denise at her invitation, but it's even more important for us to be coordinated, to be collaborative, to go to the federal government, either through the grant process or the legislative process with a united front, to say, for the region of Hamilton County and Cincinnati and Northern Kentucky, our priorities are the Brent Spence Bridge, our priorities are broadband, our priorities are lead pipe and MSD, and that kind of coordination needs to happen right now. So that's incredibly timely, but nothing will ever knock me off of my top priority, which is the growth of the city and growing with racial equity in the center of the frame. And Mayor, you know how difficult the budget is for the city. And unfortunately, what makes it even more difficult is the pandemic and the times that we're living in. So many people are still working remotely because we are still in the middle of this pandemic, and our vaccination rates aren't what we want them to be. And so because of that work from home, a large percentage of folks are eligible for a tax refund if they live outside of the city. And that represents a real challenge to basic services in our city budget. So there's even more of an impetus on us to grow, to recruit out-of-town businesses and employers, to recruit remote workers, to create the kinds of neighborhoods that those young families are looking for.
I know we particularly emphasized affordable housing during the campaign.
Yeah,
that's something that's got a lot of attention, and I think there have been some things done by council that makes the future a little faster. But I'm wondering if your thoughts on that subject, as it is so timely. It seems like it increased in importance even with COVID and the pandemic, but it's always been there.
Yeah, the wonderful thing is that our city is growing, that our population is growing, our skyline is growing, but unfortunately, due to a whole host of issues, our wages haven't necessarily kept up with our rents and our property values. And on top of that, because our population is growing, our housing supply hasn't grown commensurate with that growth. So it's creating a lot of pressure on our affordability of housing here in Cincinnati. And so what we need more of is housing. We need housing supply to go up across the board: market rate, workforce development, affordable housing, low income. We just need more supply across the board. And that supply has to be built equitably. And so in order to do that, one of my top priorities, particularly as it relates to affordable housing, is to take a look at our zoning code and make sure that it is creating the kinds of neighborhoods that we all want to live in. Taking a look at the prohibitions, I think 70% of the city prohibits multifamily units. Does that make sense in 70% of the city? I'm not sure that it does. Obviously, we have to do this in partnership with our neighborhoods, but taking a look at that and taking a look at parking requirements for houses and businesses, particularly ones that are along major public transportation routes, I'm not sure that makes sense either. But the biggest issue as it relates to affordable housing that I think we can take action on very soon after taking office is our tax abatement program. Mayor, you know this, a vast majority of our tax incentives and tax breaks are going to our wealthiest neighborhoods in Cincinnati. I care that we have more supply, but I care very deeply where it's going. And so I would like to see us reform that tax abatement process to include things like census tract or location, to ensure that Price Hill and Bond Hill are getting their fair share of tax breaks and tax incentives, and that they're creating the kind of economic activity that those neighborhoods are looking for.
Good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Really, really good stuff. In addition to those items that Mayor Luken mentioned, I know you've also been really busy assembling your transition team and kind of getting things up and running on that. And, as you start to look towards working with that transition team, what are some other specific initiatives that you're looking to introduce or kind of continue within the city in the coming months and years?
Yeah, I mean, the top issues for me, we've already talked about growth and racial equity as it relates to economic development. We've talked about affordable housing. The two other big things for me are public safety and the environment. I mean, we have a violent crime challenge here in Cincinnati, and we certainly cannot grow, and we certainly can't have healthy places to live if our city across the board is mired in gun violence, which it is. And what is even more heartbreaking is that many of the victims are children, and many of the perpetrators themselves are children. So we have to make sure we're working collaboratively with law enforcement, not just at the local level, but also at the national level. Later this week, I'll be working, meeting with hopefully the new U.S. Attorney, Ken Parker, the Chief of Police, and also the Sheriff, to talk about ways that we can get a better handle on these illegal guns that are flooding into our communities, to prioritize our resources so that we're preventing violent crime and prosecuting violent crime. But Chief Isaac will be the first to tell you that law enforcement alone can't solve this problem. So much of the root cause of the violence is poverty, particularly in the middle of this pandemic. So making sure that we provide opportunities for pathways out of poverty, including youth mentorship programs and youth employment. But we also have to make sure that their parents have good jobs too. So creating an equitable economy is going to be critically important to me, my transition team, and I believe the new council as well.
Yeah,
Could you say your vice mayor selection? I've known Jan Michelle for longer than you care to remember, but I'm an incredibly talented person and a wonderful pick. But I wonder if you'd take a second to highlight your thought about her and what went into vice mayor.
She's a home run choice. I mean, when you're looking for vice mayor, you're looking for someone who can step into the role of mayor without missing a beat. And as a Harvard law grad, as a community leader, small business owner, someone who's only been on council for I think like a year and a half, and is already leading the way on violence with the new Boys and Girls Club in Roll Hill, on affordable housing, on racial equity. She was working on the racial equity task force before the pandemic hit. I mean, she's got the trust of the community, long-standing roots in the community, and is someone who can lead on day one. So I'm quite frankly honored and lucky that she said yes, and she was a consensus pick. And I'm looking forward to not only working with her, but also learning from her. I mean, she's got just decades of experience in a whole host of arenas that I'm looking forward to leveraging.
Yeah, I think she married down.
Yes, yeah. I was just about to say she's perfect, other than her husband. I mean, nobody gets them all right.
Well, for anybody who's listening, that's an inside joke. Eric,
former Senator Eric Kearney, a lovely guy in his own right.
Yes.
But it's safe to say he outkicked his coverage.
He did.
So, Mayor, I'm going to actually go off script a little bit here and ask you a question that, I've been thinking a lot about here as a Clevelander. So we have a brand new young mayor in the city of Cleveland now. We have a new young mayor in the city of Cincinnati. And then obviously we have our friends in Columbus in the middle there. Tell me a little bit about how the mayors can start working together or continue to working together in the 3 Cs and frankly across the state, kind of move some of the policies you discussed.
Yeah, I'm admittedly learning about some of this, but there are, what's nice is that there are already organizations and an infrastructure set up on the national level and also on the local level. And what's wonderful is that it's all nonpartisan, because, at the end of the day, our national leaders can posture and be partisan and, advocate whatever agenda they're looking for. But when it comes to the mayor and local offices, that's when the rubber hits the road. And so what I have found already in this job and in my previous job in county government is that partisanship kind of goes out the window. It's about delivering results for the people. There's no, as charter says, there's no Republican or Democratic way to fix a pothole. And so I'm looking forward to partnering with mayors across the country and across the state, no matter what their party is, to figure out what are the best practices, right? Gun violence is a problem all over the country, not just in Ohio and not just in Cincinnati. So what are the smart, innovative ideas? What's working? What's the data say on that, on housing, on poverty? I'm looking forward to collaborating with Mayor-Elect Bibb, with Mayor Ginther, but also with small town mayors as well, and Appalachian mayors in the state to really start rowing in the same direction, so that we can improve education, we can improve life expectancy, not just in Cincinnati, but across the state.
Wonderful. So, once again, this is kind of our little wrap-up session here we do, Mayor-Elect. So, thank you for coming once again. And I guess I'm going to leave the floor open to you to share anything that you'd like our clients to know, our fellow partners, our fellow, colleagues, both Cincinnati, Cleveland, Columbus. And I'm going to give you the mic to kind of freestyle here.
Yeah, look, I mean, I believe that the Tuesday we got elected was a historic night. Historic because of the amount of change that we saw on council, but also historic because of what our campaign and our election represented. The first Asian and Indian American mayor of Cincinnati, but also of any major city in the Midwest. I think that is not just a national story, but an international story, that to suggest that Cincinnati is a place where no matter where you're from or what you look like, if you work hard, you can achieve your dreams. And my family story is exactly proof of that. I mean, my mother is a refugee. She grew up, she's from Tibet, grew up in India in a refugee camp. And in one generation, my family went from being refugees to now the next mayor of Cincinnati. And that story only happens right here in our community. And we as Cincinnatians are so excited for other people to come here and to share in that story.
And Mayor,
Thank you, Mayor.
offer that, there are a lot of, you made a point about Cleveland, Cincinnati, and Columbus a second ago. And the mistakes I made, not that you can learn from ancient history, but keeping those around the state of Ohio, which I know you're going to do, does give you an exposure to the way other people are working on problems that I think is hopeful. And I think I missed a lot of that. So your interest in kind of a best practices from around the state and around the country, I think will really be helpful to you.
Thank you, Mayor. Please keep the advice coming. I've never been mayor before, so looking forward to learning from you and others.
I've never given much advice, and I don't plan to now because, things have changed a great deal. And I think things have changed generally for the better and are on a positive track because of some of the new thinking, much of which you articulated in the last few minutes and throughout your campaign.
Thank you, guys. Well, I hope you guys have a great Thanksgiving. Are you guys traveling? Are you going to have to battle the lines?
I was going to go back and answer your original question, which is that I've been looking forward to my mom's stuffing for the last 6 weeks. So
Stuffing's the best. Isn't stuffing the best? Stuffing covered with gravy is my wheelhouse. I mean, turkey's fine, but the stuffing is the star of the show for me.
Absolutely. Well, we hope you enjoy your Thanksgiving as well.
Thank you, guys.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mayor-Elect. And we'll be in touch. Thanks, everybody, for joining.
Thanks, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.